Fortification targeted for the village of Khalid.
Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to another sketch and review, where I draw something from whatever it is I'm reviewing. And today's drawing is brought to you by Doom: The Dark Ages. So, first a little bit about the drawing, and then I'll get into the game review. When I started sketching this, I wanted to try and capture the essence and brutality of Doom. A simple standing pose wasn't going to cut it. So I started looking for references and ended up using an action figure for the pose. As for what weapon to go with, I had to draw the super shotgun. It's just too iconic not to use. Now, as for what style to draw this in, I wasn't sure at first. I'd been doing a lot of stylized hyperrealism, but the pose looked more like something you'd see in a comic book, so I went with digital inking. I mostly use digital inking for pinups these days, so it was nice to go back to a style I grew up doing, only on a computer now instead of a drawing book. Actually, I still do draw traditionally, just not as much these days. For those following along or trying to do this style, I always start with a light blue line pose sketch, and I make notes in red and do a prelim layer in light gray, kind of like traditional penciling. Some artists map out their shadows. Well, all artists should map out their shadows, but I've been doing this for a while and already knew where I wanted my light source to come from. Still, it's good to map out your shadows. When I started using my digital ink layer, I just went full on hardness at 100% opacity with the pencil tool and set my pen pressure to dynamic to help vary my line weight. Also, I didn't go crazy with the cross hatching like I usually do since I still consider this a sketch. I normally use a lot more detail, but I didn't want to spend 15 hours on it. I think my final drawing time was about 3 hours. Yeah, it's about 3 hours from start to finish. But as you can see, this is time lapsed because nobody wants to sit here for 3 hours. Now, before I get into my review, I feel like I need to give a small disclaimer. I received my copy with the box set Statue Deluxe Edition on May 10th, 5 days before the official release. All gameplay footage and my experience with the game is as it is out the box before any patches, if there's going to be any patches. So, let's get into it. For reference, I am playing this on PS5 in performance mode, and all gameplay, for better or worse, is captured by me. So, I've been a longtime fan of the Doom franchise since the first one. Yes, Doom 1. I am that old. I even liked 3 when it came out, and that one went in a slower paced kind of horror direction. Some people kind of had a problem with it. I actually liked it. I had Final Doom on the PS1. I bought Doom 3 again for the PS4. I have a Doom bundle on PC with 1, 2, Doom 64, all of them. I love 2016, and I think Doom Eternal is in my top 10 favorite first-person shooters alongside, let's see here, Alien vs. Predator Gold Edition, Titanfall 2, Painkiller, love Painkiller, Halo 3, Metro 2033, and of course, Quake 2. So that should give you an idea of where I'm coming from. That said, I'm approaching Dark Ages with a neutral mindset. It's too easy for fans of certain franchises to just gush over everything while dismissing the shortcomings. I'm not that kind of fan. This review is coming from someone who grew up with Doom and kind of shaped my early gaming years. Now, let's get into it. Doom the Dark Ages. Does it rip? Does it tear? Does it make me question what the hell id Software was smoking? The answer is yes. To all three. So, right off the bat, I'm going to openly say that this game does kick ass. It's well worth the asking price, and is one of the best shooters I've played in a long time. But, it's not without its issues, which I'll go over. First, let's talk about the good. And there is a lot of good. I've been a longtime fan of the Doom franchise since I was a mini slayer, as I said. And with this game, that hasn't changed. The devs have stated that while Doom 2016 made you feel like a race car and Eternal made you feel like a fighter jet, Dark Ages makes you feel like a tank. And that's completely true. Gone is the crazy zipping around and jump pad aerial combat from Eternal for a more concentrated up close approach. That's not to say there isn't as much strategy as Eternal, though. This game introduces a new gameplay mechanic that's the core of how combat works in this game. The best way I can describe it is color coded. Orange or red projectiles can be blocked or dodged, and green projectiles can be parried and sent back for massive damage. If you use the block against gunfire or orange laser orbs, it'll chip away at your shield, which has its own life bar. Now, I'm talking about the shield the Doom guy now carries around, not his traditional shield that uses those little green shards you pick up. I mean the big-ass saw shield in this game, which I'll get into in a bit. At first, I was worried that the comparisons to him being a tank meant that the game was going to have a slower approach. And while that's partly true, it's also not really as much of a change from previous entries as some people have made it out to be. The walking, aiming, and gunfights are just as fast and hectic as the last two games. In fact, there's an option to change the game speed, including how fast you can move, how fast enemies can move, and how fast projectiles can move. Yes, you can change projectile speed. All these options tie into a pretty in-depth way of customizing how easy or challenging you want to make the game. I will say though, I'm playing on Ultra Violence, and it's a lot easier than that setting in Eternal or 2016. This is probably the easiest Doom game I've ever played, and part of that has to do with the shield mechanic. The other reason it's so easy is that it has more options than any game I've ever seen. If you want a challenge, go full on Ultra Nightmare. If you're new to shooters, you can set it to the lowest setting, set projectiles at the slowest speed, and boost your health for that authentic games journalist experience. In fact, I just call it journalist mode, since reviewers on sites like IGN, GameRant, GamesRadar, Kotaku, and Polygon seem to give low scores if a game is too hard. And honestly, I still won't forgive IGN for their bullshit Alien Isolation score. That shit was criminal, really. Anyway, I mentioned earlier how orange projectiles can be dodged or blocked, and green projectiles can be deflected, and that's all thanks to the shield. See, unlike other shooters, this game kinda pushes you to run headfirst into oncoming fire. It felt strange at first since most games are all about avoiding getting shot, and I had to rethink how I played this. The shield will get knocked out if it takes enough damage, but a few bullet dodges later and it's back up. I found myself running headfirst at enemies, blocking gunfire, smacking them with either my fists or later on the mace, shooting off a few rounds and finishing them off with a nice meaty crunch to the skull. Dodging became more of a game of moving out of the way of orange lasers to purposely try and hit the green lasers back at whatever demon shot it at me. It gave a great sense that I was the one in charge of the battle instead of the demons surrounding me. I think more than the last few games, this one really emphasizes how much of a threat the Slayer is. The enemy AI is almost seemed desperate, trying to outmaneuver me at every possible angle, only to be rushed at by my super shotgun or chain shot. It really is a complete power fantasy. The shield is central to how this game is played and how combat is approached. Besides blocking and parrying, you can also use it to close the gap and bash entire groups of enemies, or throw it like Captain America to take out entire squads of other shield-using demons. One thing I get sick of in video games is enemies with shields that you need some stupid item or specific weapon to break their defenses. That kind of mechanic was never fun. Ever. Here, your own shield can rip theirs apart, or upgraded weapons like the Super Shotgun and Cycler can do the same job. Same with a melee weapon like the Mace. There are a lot, and I mean a lot of options as to how you want to dispatch any enemy type. I never felt limited in any given situation. And yeah, let's talk about the weapons. At first I wasn't too impressed, but after a few levels, I started noticing how distinct each gun felt. And to be honest, a lot of it reminded me of kind of stuff you'd see in Ratchet and Clank. You have your standard shotgun that later shares a slot with the always awesome Super Shotgun, a plasma rifle that I eventually stopped using once I got the double barrel variant called the Cycler, and is my current favorite weapon. There's the Pulverizer, which uses literal human skulls as ammo. Now that one actually looks and sounds cooler than it actually is, since that gun barely does any damage, which is kind of a shame. There's a variant you get later on that's a lot more powerful and a lot more useful, but the early version of it is just kind of weak. Then we have the Chain Shot. It's just a gun that shoots a ball attached to a chain. That sounds pretty dumb in practice, but actually, using it is way more fun than it has any right to be. It's so over the top, ridiculously powerful that I was laughing like an idiot when I first unlocked it. Then, of course, you have the Shredder, which acts as the game's basic machine gun and is actually really fun to use. There's a cool mechanic where if you throw a shield at an enemy and it gets embedded in them, you can shoot the Shredder at it and it kind of bounces bullets at other enemies. So every weapon in this game feels great and unique, and series veterans can expect plenty of medieval-style variations on old classics. And to be honest, it almost felt like I was playing Quake instead of Doom at times. Now for the level design. This is one area that Doom games have always excelled in, and it's no different here. There's a mix of linear levels with big open hub areas, and full-blown open world levels with objectives that you can tackle in whatever order you want. And the levels are pretty decent size too, with some taking me about a good 45 minutes to an hour to complete. Some may rush through it faster, but that's me playing at a moderate pace and exploring on my own without the map open or anything. See, I'm not a speedrunner. I like to actually enjoy my games. Now, I hate to make comparisons since I like to view games on how they stand based on their own merit, but when something stands out as being derivative, I'm gonna say something. The level design and some of the enemy behavior in Dark Ages reminds me a lot, and I mean a lot, of Halo Combat Evolved. Yep, the first Halo game. Now, hear me out before you run to the comments, and don't take this the wrong way. It's still very much Doom, but some parts of it were ripped straight from Halo, like one early level reminded me step for step of the Silent Cartographer. And the forest level was an almost exact replica of 343 Guilty Spark. That's the swamp level. In Halo, of course. Furthermore, shielded enemies have the same attack pattern as jackals from Halo, and more so, the bigger imps would shoot a fireball, then jump out of the way immediately with almost the same animation as an elite. It happened enough for me to notice that a lot of enemy behavior was less Doom and more Halo. The AI here is a lot different from 2016 and Eternal, especially a later enemy type from the Cosmic Realm that rushes you one-to-one exactly like a brute from Halo 3. There were lots of times I kept thinking to myself, this is literally a Halo game with a Quake skin starring Doom Guy. That doesn't make this game bad or anything, and I'm still adamant about it being one of the best Doom games around, but there's too many similarities for me to ignore. And since I'm on the subject of enemy types, I do want to say that this installment might actually have my overall favorite designs. I'm a sucker for grimdark medieval techno horror like Warhammer 40k. For example, the Revenant is no longer this awkward lanky skeleton cyborg with rocket shoulders, but a hooded flying reaper that shoots skulls and has a laser sickle. The Hell Knights are fully armored relentless tanks. The imps look like third-degree burn victims. Even the Caco demon was changed to look more slender and vicious. I for one am okay with that change since I'm going to get shit. I thought the big fat meatball Cyclops look was kinda lame. Sorry, purists. Even a from the beginning fan like me hated the Caco demon. Eh. Even the Pinky demon now has a rider and serves a greater overall purpose. The enemy designs are top notch in this game. There's even a few welcome surprises toward the end once you get into Lovecraft territory. Let me just say that the Cosmic Realm levels in this area are a treat if you're into H.P. Lovecraft and the Cthulhu mythos. One caveat though, there is a teleporting enemy type that's less hard more than it is just annoying. Can we stop with teleporting enemies? It's a gimmick that creates artificial difficulty padding and just isn't fun. I mean, does anybody actually like fighting enemies that zip around teleporting around the map that are essentially just bullet sponges and don't really offer a real challenge aside from where's it going to end up next? Man, that really makes me miss the Marauder, though. Oh, you gloriously cheap shielded bastard. Overall, I'd say the combat, which is the core of any Doom game, is on point. They nailed the feel of still being a one-man army. You're basically the final boss of the game and everything else is just trying to survive. On harder difficulties, which is what I recommend, nothing really ever felt cheap. Except the teleporting shitheads. Seriously, I hate those things. Please bring the Marauder back. If I ever died, it was because I didn't block or parry right or was too eager to get in a hit or a shot. The game actually is very fair. Like I said earlier, it's probably the easiest Doom game out there. If it didn't have a piss-easy games journalist mode, they probably wouldn't have been giving it such high scores. On a side note, and I didn't know where I wanted to mention this, but if you manage to blow an enemy's arms off, they'll just stand there like the Black Knight and Monty Python's Holy Grail. I'm not sure if it's a bug or an Easter egg, but it's pretty hilarious. I mean, look at this. This is just funny. They had to have done this on purpose. Like there's no way that didn't get past the Q&A testing. As for the performance and graphics, I'll say it's serviceable. I didn't run into any bugs or glitches on the PS5, and the game did run perfectly smooth. However, parts of it seemed a bit blurry or muddy. I thought maybe I had my HDR settings messed up. Nope, everything was optimized fine in game and on my system. So, I booted up Doom 2016, and then I booted up Doom Eternal to compare them, and well, either those games were ahead of their time or Dark Ages is using old tech. Now, it doesn't look terrible by any means, but it's also not as good looking as, say, Stalker 2 or Space Marine 2. It's also not as bad as some dipshits online are saying. It simply looks good. Not amazing, not terrible, just good. Games are allowed to just look good. Next up, the music. Yeah, you can't talk about a modern Doom game without mentioning the music. This time around, the soundtrack is done by Finishing Move, and they do a pretty good job. Now, comparisons are going to be made to Mick Gordon. Obviously, because he did the last two. Well, fully did 2016, and there were some issues with Eternal. He did an amazing job on Doom 2016, and despite the mishaps with Doom Eternal, it turned out okay. What happened with Eternal is a long story that I won't go into, but the soundtrack for Dark Ages has a gritty, raw feel that serves it best when the action gets going. My only problem is that it's just a bit too straightforward metal. I know that's strange considering that I'm a metalhead. No, what I mean is, while the music is heavy and the riffs are great, it's missing that atmospheric overtone that Mick brought to Doom 2016 and, for better or worse, Eternal. I like the soundtrack, and I actually was listening to it while drawing this, but it didn't hit those same blood-curdling notes that the previous games had. Now, again, that's not to say it's a bad soundtrack. It's actually pretty fucking killer. It's more like having a perfectly cooked T-bone steak with loaded potatoes and a craft beer after having filet mignon with braised double fried yams and top shelf finely aged bourbon. Like, I'm not going to complain about having either of those, but if Doom 2016 was cranked to 11, then this sits at a perfect 10. So don't take that as the soundtrack being bad. It's still great, and I think Finishing Move did a superb job with what they had, so I'm keeping my thoughts on the music under the good things about the game category. Now, let's go over the bad. For as much as I love this game, it's not without its faults. Also, I understand some people may disagree with me on some of these points, but I went off my first impression gut feelings on these things. I'll be blunt. The vehicle sections in this game suck. I replayed them a few times to see if maybe I was missing something or that maybe I just didn't see the genius behind it. No, sorry, the vehicle sections feel like a tacked on gimmick. Let me explain. The first time you get into a 10-story tall mech called an Atlan, the cutscene is epic. You get these awesome low-angle shots, pounding drums, guitar, and you're finally set loose on a ravaged battlefield. Then you step out of the hangar and go through the obligatory press R2 to punch tutorial. Alright. Then you go through an equally exciting bout of Rock'em Sock'em Robots with a giant demon kaiju, where you punch, dodge, and punch. Then you do it again, and again, and again. Oh, but then you get a minigun, which is kinda cool, but ultimately feels weaker than it looks. And that's it. It's honestly just kinda boring, and I wondered, why am I doing this? It's so mechanically limited that it felt like a tech demo from an NVIDIA convention in 2005. Then we have the Dragon. Cool, right? A cyber dragon. This should be fun. I don't get it. I seriously don't get it. How do you take a Doomslayer riding a cyber dragon with laser wings and make it dull? Here's how it goes. While you can fly around and shoot, what you actually end up doing is locking onto a target which holds you in place, then you dodge green plasma shots to power up your guns and destroy your target. It's not even a rail shooter, it's a stay-in-place shooter. Also, how does dodging power you up? It mechanically makes zero sense. They could have done something like, you need to chase down smaller targets to power up your guns, but no, everything is stay in place and shoot. I mean, there are a few special ships you can chase on a preset path, but that's all they do. They fly on a path. They don't attack you, there's no dogfights, nothing. You have this full premise and it's wasted flying in an empty skybox shooting turrets. It honestly just seems a lot of wasted potential. The best parts are honestly when you land on a ship, dismount, and take it out from the inside on foot. The actual flying mechanic is fine. It feels a bit stiff, but it's pretty precise. It's just too bad that it's wasted on a mostly empty map, and that goes for all the flying maps. I had someone in a group tell me that my expectations were too high and that I should be more grateful. And I'm sorry, but that's kind of a bullshit statement. I'm not going to be grateful for something that was phoned in and tacked on with minimal effort and lazy design. While yes, I was looking forward to the mech and dragon stuff, it was also advertised as being something integral and combat focused. The truth is, the amount of care taken with the new shield mechanics and improved melee was evidently not implemented with the vehicle segments. Now for the story. Those interested in the story should know that Dark Ages has one. But that's all it has. is a story. It just has no plot. See, a story is a series of events that happen, and this definitely has events. There's just no plot. A plot is essentially why things happen in a story and provides the layout or the structure. This game has no narrative structure, and I honestly couldn't tell you why anything was going on or why anyone was doing what they were doing. Now, I can already hear, but it's Doom. You don't need to know why. You just shoot stuff. And I'll agree. Here's my thing. If that's the case, why even add this unmotivated mess of a narrative in it? We're never told why or how the Slayer became a slave to the Makers or what Azrak's deal is. The villain is honestly just kinda cookie cutter. I mean, he's got a cool design, I'll admit, but kind of lacking in the being an actual threat department. See, the problem is this game doesn't explain anything. Stuff just happens. It's the opposite of exposition where the audience is beat over the head with what's going on. Like the latest Marvel or Star Wars movies over explaining everything. Yes, we get it. Rey is the mostest, most badass, most capable, unbeatable, powerful Jedi ever. Here, though, there's no explanation to anything. And to be honest, Doom was easier to follow when there was almost no narrative. People were able to figure out on their own how the lore works. Here, they're trying so hard to expand the lore that it leaves more questions than answers. Now, before I get comments like, did you even pay attention to the game? How do you not know what's going on? Yes. Yes, I did pay attention. What I'm saying is that while there is a story here and the characters are actually surprisingly fleshed out, there was no glue holding it together. Nothing to give a greater sense of why this particular part of this story needed to be told. It's just kind of there. And yes, I know it takes place between Doom 64 and Doom 2016, but some explanation as to how he got captured by the Makers would be nice. With that said, I do want to mention something Games Radar brought up. They docked a few points from the game because they claimed that the Doomslayer lacked personality. Out of everything I mentioned about the weak narrative, the one thing I didn't mention was the Doomslayer's lack of personality. That is not the issue here. The Slayer is a badass in his own silent bravado as much as he always is. He doesn't talk except maybe once across a few games, and literally one word in this game. Of all the narrative problems the game has, the Doomslayer's personality is not one of them. I want to know what the people at Games Radar are smoking since they sure as hell don't know shit about Doom. So, with my nitpicking about the shoehorned in vehicle segments, lackluster story, and above average serviceable graphics, I still want to make it clear that this is a good game. When it comes to the actual Doom slaying, it's on point. I'm not going to say that it feels like the next evolution of the series, but it is a great addition. I think of it more as a companion piece to the series rather than a next step. Also, I still want to see vehicles in future Doom games. Just because I don't think it worked here doesn't mean that they can't improve upon it and try again. The team did an amazing job with the game, and I for one am glad it came out as good as it did right out the box. Unlike other reviewers, I can admit when a great game has faults, but still like it when it shines. The cons don't take away from it. If you're a fan of Doom 2016 and Eternal, you'll most likely like this one. Of course, some people are adamantly one-sided and try to fight over 2016 and Eternal, but let's be realistic. They're both good games. Just because people prefer one over the other doesn't mean either is bad. That's like arguing over the best pizza versus the best burger. I'm going to eat both. It's kind of a stupid argument. Same with this game. It may not be as fast as either, but it's still a worthy addition for other reasons. And I actually like the up close in your face push that Dark Ages leans toward. My final verdict? It's worth playing. It's a great game and I had a ton of fun. Also, I get the whole controversy about the physical edition only having the license on the disc and the rest of the game needs to be downloaded, and some people canceled their orders, and honestly, I'm fine with that. That's their choice. I ordered this way before that news came out, but I still wanted the statue and the collector stuff, because I'm a collector. And for future reference, I'll probably do a bit more research before pre-ordering things. But If you get your hands on it by, I'll just say, other means, ahoy, then you're in for a treat. Anyway, if you like what I do and want to help support me with unique and original content, please hit that like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.